Not yet. Now we are. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the River's Edge. I am your host, Kelli Rivers, and your co-host, Sammy Rivers, is in the house. We have the beautiful and talented Tiffany Sparrow on today. This is so cool. I love this stuff. Tiffany is a singer and certified music therapist and composer. She uses the power of live and recorded music plus soulful counseling to help people heal body image and food issues and find the confidence and freedom to be who and why they came here to be. That's so cool. Who does that? Tiffany does. Thank you so much for being here.
So happy to be here. It's great to be here.
I've never met anyone who does this, so this is ultra cool. I just love it. I want to hear all about it. I want to hear how you got started in it and how you help people. And also, Tiffany agreed to do a little singing and playing today. How awesome is that? And I know people are going to have questions for you. So let's get started. I want to hear how you got into this.
Yeah, let's start at the very beginning. Hey, well, I mean, my family's always been musical. So I was lucky. I grew up in a family that sang. Like I've got an uncle who entertains in Vancouver. And, my mom sings and all that kind of thing. So I grew up with some music around me already. And then I guess it was, I had a crisis and a difficult time when I was in my preteens and early teens and actually faced a few eating disorders at that point. And it was a really challenging time for me and was hospitalized and the whole gamut and all that kind of thing. And I found that traditional methods, like the traditional talk therapy and the medication, all that kind of thing, it just wasn't quite getting at the heart of what was going on for me. And I knew that I needed to take it from, let's talk about that and let's think about that and let's stop that thought and all techniques that are useful, definitely. And I'm not trying to knock them completely, but to a point. And I knew that I needed to find something that was just more actually just involved my body, or just I had a calling to body and spirit, right? So expanding beyond the mind. And ended up playing around with, things like, yoga books from my local library, and ended up doing some singing and doing some writing through my teens. Ended up in university for music. And then it was about that time when the Mozart effect, I don't know if you've ever heard about that. There's like a book or like a whole movement just about Mozart's music. And it was a little more prescriptive than I think the way that music and sound really work for us. But it sparked this whole I'm really interested in psychology and wellness and healing in general, as I've been on this healing journey now for a few years, like myself as a young adult. And then there was this profession, music therapy, that my mom heard about, and ended up finding someone who worked in it and was a music therapist. And I basically just put all my eggs in that basket. I was like, yep, that sounds about right. It's not, it's using music. It's using music in an organic way, in a way that connecting to myself in a real way. It wasn't about trying to perfect or polish something so that it could be on a stage for performance, which is a beautiful art, but it's not quite the same as using music to really get into the heart and soul of what's going on for a person mentally or physically. It's just a different way of using music. And I dove in, and the rest is kind of history.
So were you able to heal your eating disorder through sound healing?
Yeah. And so long story short, so yes, step by step, and it's been in increments, right? So it took quite a few years, and I would say definitely upwards of into my late 20s even. I'd found yoga by that point, so I'm a yoga instructor as well. So all these things, sort of searching for alternative methods, right, for healing. And even in my late 20s, I realized that I was still using, nutrition. I was still using yoga even as a way to low key not love myself fully, if that makes sense, right? Like it sometimes felt like I had to do this in order to have a certain body shape, and so it's just layers of realizing, right? Like, and as soon as I realized that I was still doing that, I was like, okay, clearly then I there's still some things to heal here. And so the method that's ultimately really helped me has been a combination of like energy work, shamanic release commands combined with music. So music is definitely a part of it. It's a container. It comes up. It's, use it with some toning or as a point of conversation. But there's other things that come in too. So it's kind of music facilitated shamanic or energy healing work. And that's pretty much the way that I work today, primarily.
I love that. I love that. Oh, I know music is so healing, because whenever I am feeling down or and we all do this, right? Whenever you need a little pick me up, okay, let's put on a song that we really like, and it picks up your mood immediately, right?
Yes. That's
And
kind
I
of
love, yeah, go ahead.
just to say that's one of the things that helps people relate to this idea of, well, how could music be used as part of therapy or as part of healing, kind of thing, right? Because it can kind of be a new concept for people. But that definitely is a great example of just, yeah, music can really help us shift our mood in a fairly quick way. And a lot of us instinctually, like, we bring music into all kinds of different things we're doing, be it exercise or be it, partying, be it mourning, like for all kinds of different areas, music definitely gets woven in.
I love it.
And we can just take it even one step further and bring it into, well, how can it help us to work through or heal different parts of ourselves that we're working on?
I love it. So Saturday mornings, I used to, with my dad, put on some new age music. I love new age, and the piano and all that. And do you ever hear Windham Hill classics? Windham Hill used to put on a different variety of composers and their albums, but this is before your time. This is in the early 90s. And it was beautiful, and I loved it. So it brings me back when I do that now. It's like weekends are my new age music time. If I want to clean and whatever I'm getting done, just be bopping around the house, and it brings me back to when my dad was alive, when we'd spend the time together. So it does all kinds of things, right? It's such a lovely. I love music. I cannot imagine going a day without music in my life. There's no way.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that most people, although I have met a few people that prefer silence, and that's another part of music or using music, is the space between the notes or the space after the music too, right? But I would say most people would agree with you. Most people are music.
I love it. And I love that you use that to heal yourself. So how does it work? How does you can use your own example of healing your eating disorder. How does the music change you so you didn't have the eating disorder anymore?
Okay, how to answer this question. So music can be effective, especially when we apply it in a way that's intentional, is sometimes the word that's used, or directed, or using the different elements of music for their advantage. So elements like speed, how fast or slow, or how loud or soft, or preferences, or there's all kinds of different things that come into play when we're talking about the elements. And I won't go down that rabbit hole. Music can impact us when we're talking a holistic perspective. We have different areas, though they're all connected, but different areas of health, be it our physical, be it our cognitive thinking, be it our emotional, be it our social relationship, or be it with our connection to something beyond ourselves, right? And so those are kind of the 5 main categories that I use. There could be more, but I kind of break everything down into those domains of wellness. And there's anecdotal as well as research-based evidence around how music can have an impact on each and every one of them. And so it's really lovely in that we can use music to kind of tailor a person's experience depending on what is most needed for a person, right? Like there's lots of research around music and the mind and thoughts and memory. Reprogramming thoughts tends to be where I work a lot, or just even music. Then when we talk about emotions, as you mentioned before, that tends to be an area that I really lean into, is accessing music to help us both bring up uncomfortable emotions so that we can either release them or repurpose them, because any negative emotion is just is a messenger, basically, right? So it's self-doubt, self-hate, anxiety, depression, they're all messengers. And we can use music, because there is music, there's angry music, there's there's sad music, we can use music to actually let that emotion be recognized and realized and heard, and then we can decide what needs to happen from there. Like, is it something that, you know, we're releasing, and take a sort of, I tend to take more of a shamanic practice that way then, if we're doing a releasing kind of thing, because that's part of my training. Not all music therapists are trained that way, but that's part of me. Or we can integrate it and, you know, and see, okay, well, what is the message, or a combination of the two, right? So try and keep this as clear as possible, because I could kind of tangent a little bit. But so in the emotional realm, and then when it comes to eating disorders, there's also a very strong physical component. So it's usually an interaction between the different domains, but music targets our body. Like, a lot of us don't think about it. We usually think about, when we listen and hear, we usually think about, you know, these devices at the sides of our heads, which, yes, very specially designed to receive sound. However, we receive sound through our whole body. And so when we're listening to sound, and a good example of that is like any major like concert you'd go to, you can, or sitting in traffic, I'll often say, if you're sitting in traffic and a car with big bass drives up beside you, and you can feel that.
Yeah, you feel it in your body.
Sense it in your body, right? So that's a very kind of coarse example of how we receive, but we receive all sound through our bodies. So it can be a really nice way, music can be a really nice way to mitigate that relationship between our feelings and emotions and our sensations in our body, which is often where, when it comes to body image, some of the discrepancy comes in. And even to the point where our feelings that get embedded in our subconscious thoughts, because feelings and thoughts are very much linked, right? So usually working with what's subconscious, bringing that up, and then letting it be released or repurposed can actually change how we feel in our bodies and about our bodies, kind of thing.
It's so interesting.
I could go on, right? I mean, I could if just briefly, also there's the spiritual connection dimension, or something beyond ourselves, and our relationships to other people. Those definitely come in when it comes to body image and disordered eating. So it's like, it's a very holistic practice.
Is there a certain hertz that you play whenever you want to, depending on what you want to heal?
Are there certain, the first part,
the hertz, like yeah, like the 432, 444, 88, whatever.
So I adhere to the school of every sound has a purpose. Every sound, every tonality has potential. And I don't necessarily inherently adhere to this idea of, oh, the miracle tone will do this. And it's actually, I would say, a big myth about some of the new age music that's out there. And I'm going to say something that's maybe unpopular or controversial, potentially. But
Daphne wrote his comment about you. I highlighted it.
Hi, Daphne.
Hey, Daphne. Daphne's going to be on here on Monday.
Daphne's amazing. Thank you, Daphne.
He says you're a lot of knowledge.
Could go on and on, right? I don't think I'll go too far down that rabbit hole. Suffice to say that all of these things that we hear on YouTube can definitely be beneficial. But anything that claims to be prescriptive, is kind of, hey, it honestly, because people respond so differently, in my experience, to different sounds. And if you were to take, how to explain this? So there's lots on there for like, okay, this will help you sleep. There's lots of, for example, just as one example. Right?
That's a great example.
Listen to them. They're all so different. So many of them are so different in terms of like, there's tinkly, tinkly, tinkly in some of them. There's like low bass in other ones. There's like rhythm in some of them. There's other like, and it's, so it's like, okay, I would wager to say, although, you know, maybe this is a blanket statement, but a lot of those claims they might be true, but music does not necessarily work prescriptively like that. It's not like, oh, and that was the problem with the Mozart effect also. It was sort of saying prescriptive, like, oh, I've got this like headache here, so then play this piece of music. And then, oh, I've got like a stomach ache, so play this piece of music. There hasn't been, in my experience, and I'm willing to be proven wrong, there's not been enough real evidence to show that, especially when we're talking about tonalities, in a universal way, that a certain tonality is going to affect a certain chakra or a certain organ across the board. I mean, whether just the research hasn't been done or it's just not been my experience working with people. People have such different responses to different music. If we even just think about our preferences, right? Like some people love new age music. Some people hate it. Even new age music is a broad blanket topic, right? There's so many different artists within that. And I like this piece, but I don't like this piece. And there is some research around preference, and preference being a really important part. And I think it's specifically around pain. So individuals working with pain, but like just this idea of us really leaning into what do we like? And so it's not just about the music itself, although the music itself does have an impact, but it's also about what memories does it bring up? How does this actually make me feel? What's my social conditioning? What are my memories around this? Like there's other pieces that come into the story in terms of how music and sound impact us. So anytime someone says, oh, this singing bowl is for the third chakra, I am just, no, I will go out on a limb and I'll say it doesn't work that way.
What about if you wanted to negatively, because they say a lot of the music today is not on the love frequency, it's on a negative frequency to cause more disruption or chaos and make you unstable. Is that a thing?
So I don't know that I'll go to, I'm not an expert in those theories necessarily. I will say that when it comes to 432 versus 440, like these are just cycles per second,
Yeah.
and they're frequencies, right? And their tonalities. It would be like let's see, where's so that's A 440, and 432 would be sort of a little bit lower, right? And a second is kind of a man created measurement, right? So if we're creating something based on a cycle per second, it's still man created. And one of the arguments behind 432 is that when you look at the harmonics, and this might be leaving some people in the dust, so don't worry if you don't understand it. The mathematics of the harmonics and overtones work out to be simpler ratios. But when we're talking about something that's measured in cycles per second, a second is still something that's been created by us, right? It's not fully reflective of nature, although it approximates it. It's not enough conclusive evidence for me to say, oh, this is the sound of nature, right? Like 432 is more natural because of the overtones in the math, because it's based on a cycle per second. And this will be controversial for some people in that community, but my experience is that all tones, like the Om is all sounds. Om encompasses all, just like, that's my belief. That's been my experience. And when we're talking about therapy and healing, we actually want to evoke some of these emotions, albeit I guess some of the argument is that it's subconscious, it's unconscious, like, these tonalities. That's one of the arguments, right? For 440 or whatever, it's subconscious and it's, but when I'm working with someone therapeutically, I actually want to lean into some of the discomfort, because otherwise it's just like putting salve over a wound that's infected. It might break through and it might help, but it's way more effective, especially when we're talking about long-term, to get in there a little bit gently. I don't want to cut in, and that can be re-traumatizing for people, which is why it's important to have a level of training in terms of music and working with people when we're doing this kind of thing. But I find it's really important to get in and actually acknowledge the anxiety, acknowledge the negative emotion, acknowledge the deep grief, the rage, and just let that have a voice, because it's a messenger for us.
I love it. So if someone has some trauma they're trying to overcome, they come to you and they want help and they want you to play music or have whatever you do. Can you play us something like you would normally do for someone that's healing from past trauma? Okay, do you want to use an example of someone in the audience that may have something to heal, or do you have an example you would like to use of what you would do?
So here's the thing, and it's not usually, it's usually co-creative experience. I do something with somebody, I don't know that I necessarily have a go-to, because I'm going to want to lean into a person and their experience. And I'm going to want to get to know a little bit more, like, what is that trauma? Again, it's not like, oh, I was abused by blah, 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 and I had this experience. This music is going to heal me, right? It just doesn't work. Generically calming music, music that's they have found that music that's repetitive, okay, music that's consistent, so whether it's consistently like a slow tempo, or even like we'll hear in some binaural beats kind of stuff, or even harmonic trance music, you'll hear like a repetitive rhythm, but the repetition, with it doesn't change over and over, can actually over time have a trance-like or hypnotic or even a calming effect, even if it's fast. But when a rhythm changes, for example, like, you know, and it's sort of like, well, what it's a, you know, like that's just a really crude example. So the only really substantial evidence that I've seen that's a little bit more like universal is that consistency tends to evoke more of a relaxation response. Change tends to be more stimulating. And I use those two words, relaxation and stimulating, because stimulating can mean aggravating or it can mean exciting, you know, so the emotion attached to it can up to interpretation, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some binaural beats I can get into. Others I'm like, no, it's not working for me at all.
Right. So if it's not working for you, it's like, yeah, if it's like this music that's designed to, you know, to remove depression or whatever, and it's like you can't stand the sound of like the chimes or like the clarinet or whatever, it's like it's not going to have the effect.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just annoyed right now. Just make it go away.
Right. Oh, it's good for me. It's good for me. Play it, play. You know, I will say that there is a whole area of work which I'm less familiar with, but that I'm really interested in, that does look at, you know, some of your like your voice and your vocal cords and just like the tones and frequencies that come through you. And I won't talk too much about it because I don't know that much about it, but just this idea that if there are things that could be added in terms of certain tones that way for us specifically, that could potentially have a healing effect. But that's a whole other thing than saying, you know, A in 432 is generically healing in this way for everyone. It seems to be a fairly individuated, for the most part, thing for most people. And I'm really interested in getting in, and that's the beauty of music, is that there's so many different styles. It's so flexible. It's really the perfect medium to really work with a person's individual needs and abilities, right?
You know, when I was growing up in the 80s, my mom always used to say that music was of the devil. Everyone's a devil worshiper. You know, AC/DC, Motley Crue, all those guys. And I love their music. I'm like, Quiet Riot. Oh, they worship the devil. And I'm like, well, I love their music. I don't care. I didn't believe that they worshiped the devil, but it was so crazy because that was like the religious. I grew up in Arkansas. The religious was all against, like, no, you can't go listen to that music. But it was like music. It made me feel so good. I got so excited because you know, kids love music too growing up. We all have our favorite music when we were teenagers and younger. Yeah. So it was just funny how it was like made to be bad. And I'm like, there's no way. I love music. Music is not bad.
And if it gives you that good emotion, right? Like, so I will talk to that too, right? Because there's mixed research about, you know, music with socially proactive, or what's the word, like nice lyrics, or social, I can't think of the word right now, that it could somehow stimulate pro-social behavior, right? And there's some evidence supporting that, you know, songs with pro-social lyrics. And there's some evidence, though, when I was in Australia doing my master's research, they were actually looking into causation and just like death metal. And, you know, is there a cause or an effect? Listen, right. And I would say that they were kind of saying what you're saying, that if people, like true fans, are not necessarily, one of the questions was around how can women be death metal fans when so many of the lyrics are like violent against women?
Right.
And what they were finding at the time is that people weren't even really paying attention. Well, even though I'm not really sure how much, you know, some of it does kind of get into us subliminally, I believe, but
I don't know.
The feeling, the overall feeling was helping them feel good. So that kind of trumped any of the lyrics. And so that's how they navigated that. What they have found in the research, and I will say about this, is that it's less of a cause effect in that, oh, this angry death metal music will cause people to go out and do this. It's more that people who tend to be aggressive will tend towards aggressive music more so, right? So not everyone. It's not a blank, like, it's not like, oh, I listen to aggressive music, I'm aggressive. It might just be that, that aggressive part of myself doesn't want to be stuffed down, and I need to find a healthy way to express it. And actually listening to music like that can actually be a really healthy way. I'm not acting on anything. I'm not doing anything. It could be a really healthy way to acknowledge that part of myself that we all have. We all have anger and aggression to a certain extent, right? So
yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Because sometimes I want to listen to Metallica when I want to get rid of my, my angst or whatever it is.
yeah, I sometimes do. I talk about the myths around using music and sound, and that's one of the myths, is this idea that angry music or death metal is inherently unhealing or not good for healing. And I definitely bring in, especially if it is relevant to the person I'm working with, or they relate to it. Or, I mean, just the other day I was doing some Nirvana, or so. I mean, they're not death metal, but something that's a little more angsty, or
Yeah.
or the Metallicas, or that kind of thing.
Gene. That's a good one.
And then we don't just leave it there, right? So it's not just I play you some music and you're done. It's like, yes, that can definitely help us get into the mood. Then we reprocess it a little bit, right? It's like, let's explore, what is that bringing up in you, and who is that part of you? And so it does lead us into exploration, and it's not just like, oh, I press this music and I'm cured and healed, right?
I love this stuff. Okay, Joan says totally co-creative, like you were saying. She uses tuning forks in her massage practice. Oh, I love that.
Wonderful. Yeah, tuning forks are great. And I will say about that, just briefly, I could talk forever, Kelli.
You're going to sing soon, everyone. She's going to sing.
Oh, yeah. The tuning forks, they use this really cool, at least the ones that I use sometimes in my practice, this idea of the relationship between notes. So it's not the tone itself. It's the relationship between and the intervals, and what the different tonalities, what that creates for us. And there is a little more wisdom behind that, as far as I'm concerned. There is a little more to be said around, if you got a really dissonant tone, like it's I can't really hang on. So if you've got, let's see, I got my Shruti box here. Let's see if this will give us a good example. So we've got,
what do we have here?
Okay, so we've got one tone, and if I add this in,
What is that?
That's what we call a dissonant tone, because it's kind of like, it's one semitone up. It's like, it's really crunchy. It's a minor second, we call that, right? Interval. Versus that interval has sort of a different effect. Versus anyways, I could go on and on. So tuning forks, and usually you use two at one time, not just one. Usually, I mean, that's how I've been trained. They're able to use that wisdom of the intervals, and just how they can impact us on a physiological and neurological level.
I love it. Okay. Daphne says, thank you for helping her find her voice again. That's nice.
So that is part of the co-creative process. Like, so often I will encourage people that I work with, and to varying extents, people are comfortable or less comfortable with using their voice in singing or vocalizing, right? Because there's a whole bunch of people have stories, or there's all these beliefs because of, whatever, that, oh, singing's not for me, or it is, or not, right? But it's our body, right? Like it's an instrument we have, be it our spoken voice, be it just how we naturally use sounds to express emotions, in like a sigh, or like surprise, or like like a laughter, right? So we do use our sounds to help emotions move. And so I love to facilitate a space that feels safe as much as possible for people to start to explore organic sounds like that, like sounds of emotions, up to even just, maybe turning what they're saying as they're talking into lengthened sounds, which becomes a song, and then they can just keep talking, right? So it can be even just sort of that small of a step, right? So
yeah, sometimes, a lot of times when I talk, I tend to drag the words together like I'm singing.
Yeah.
All right, let me see what else. Nellie said, or Auntie Nellie, what is that called? I'm not sure what you're referring to, Auntie. You must have written that earlier.
Maybe the instrument I was playing.
What do you think about this? What she says? A lot of the music casts spells with the lyrics.
Yeah, it definitely, I believe that it can, just even on a subliminal subconscious level. But there's also the emotional factor that kind of can come into play, right? In terms of when we're talking about the impact that it has on a person, if it makes you feel, joyous and uplifted, the lyrics aren't always what people are paying attention to.
That's me totally. My emotion is way more overpowering than anything, whatever kind of spell they're trying to do. And plus, I think when you go down that road, then you start focusing on that, and I'm like, I'm not into that. I like music, I enjoy it, I listen to it, and I move on. So I think Auntie Nellie was asking what you just said, what you were playing, and Daphne said a shetty.
Not quite, but very close, Daphne. Shruti, Shruti, Shruti box.
Shruti.
Yeah. So Shruti, it's an instrument that I believe originated in India, although you know what, I don't know the exact origins of it, to be honest with you. But Shruti is an Indian word, which I should remember. I believe it means scale. And so yes, it's a box that is a reed driven instrument, and it plays tones, and I use it when I'm doing my chanting and my mantra work. I use it for that.
You used it on her 13-year-old border collie.
Yeah, we've done some sound healing. Daphne's awesome. So we've done a little bit of work. Her pets were in the area, so I was working with her and using some bowls and using some tuning forks, and her pets were there. And yeah. Oh, and yes, the 13-year-old border collie, who unfortunately is no longer with us, who is in a lot of pain and quite anxious in the last little part of her life. And yeah, put some of the tuning forks to help her ground and calm down and relax and stop thinking so much. And yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's interesting. Do you want to play any stuff for us?
Sure. I mean, I'd love, so along the lines of the spells, and I agree with you. And I would say that that's definitely a preference, that I prefer to, find music that has an uplifting overall, if I'm performing for things, or find music that has a message of coming through difficulty. Even if we talk about the difficulty, it's like has a message of overcoming or coming through.
Yeah.
So I'd love to play The Miracle for you all today, just at least to start.
Okay.
So this is a song that I wrote for a friend a while back. He was going through a pretty confused time, and at a time that an emotion I could resonate with myself, or just feeling like, what's the point of what I'm doing, that kind of thing, right? Or
people feel that the past year, I'd say.
Discouraged, I guess would maybe be the word, right? Or hope, even hopelessness. So this is The Miracle. You're true forever, your light will never lead you astray. As you wander the desert, saying, take my hand and understand that it's over. We're drawing our line in the sand. But just keep on believing. Life can be deceiving. Sometimes you need faith in what you're here to do. Well, the veil is lifting, horizon shifting, but know that the miracle is you. Know that the miracle is you. These cycles are breaking with each step. You're taking in balance and ease of the sweetness waking. So gather your trust, 'cause the universe is just, and let your fears vanish like ashes and dust. But just keep on believing. Life can be deceiving. Sometimes you need faith in what you're here to do. Well, the veil is lifting, horizon shifting, but know that the miracle is you. Know that the miracle is you. So just keep on believing. Life can be deceiving. Sometimes you need faith. Veil is lifting, horizon shifting, but know that the miracle is you. Know that the miracle is you.
Yeah, that was so awesome. Oh my God, your voice is insane. I love it. You remind me of a singer on the radio, and I cannot think of who it is, but there's a song that you have that same tone out. I love it. Oh my God.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks.
That's beautiful. How do we get a copy of that song?
So that song it's on my website. It's also on YouTube. So Daphne and many other people that were involved in making of a video for that song. It was a social collaboration project not long after COVID quarantine, where people were asked to just, but to connect with that part of themselves that connected with their light and the miracle that they were, and record themselves for a few moments doing that and sharing that with people. So that's the video on YouTube. You can find under I'm Tiffany Sparrow on YouTube.
Wait, I gotta add it in the banner here so people can look it up. So it's on YouTube under what?
YouTube /C /Tiffany Sparrow.
Just type in Tiffany Sparrow, they'll find you.
Yeah, Tiffany Sparrow on YouTube, or TiffanySparrow.com is my website, and they can grab. It's from the album Journey On. And yeah, and then all the platforms, it's available there.
Here, I'm going to add that in. The album is Journey On. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. Are you on iTunes?
Yeah, I'm on all the places, iTunes, the Spotify's, and online, and yeah. You know, I was thinking, just as I was completing the song, too, some of the other music I have besides the singer-songwriter stuff is more mantra based. So that's another area where I've really sunk my work into, and my even research. I did my master's thesis focused on group chanting and mantra singing, and just some of the health benefits and such. And so you can also find music that's more mantra based and you know, inspired from teachings from yoga and from my teacher in India and that kind of thing. And if there were anything that kind of approximated prescription, if you will, it would be more so the use of mantra. And you know, as some of your listeners were talking about some of the spelling that can happen in positive impactful ways, and there's a whole other science behind mantra and Sanskrit as a language in terms of what it's doing with our palate, and just some of the beliefs and understanding what happens in our reptilian brain, or our autonomic processes with it. But so much more to be discovered. And I don't want to come across as though I dunk everything into research. I'm definitely hey, right brain and left brain is needed. We need the spirit with the science.
Exactly.
We need the experience. And I just also just put a cautionary note around, like, not a cautionary note, but just if you believe, the belief impact is a really big deal too, like the placebo effect. So with these YouTube pieces that say, oh, this music is going to heal your heart chakra, there's an element of simply believing that it's going to do that, that can have an impact, right? Whether the tonality is for that or not, like if the intention is there, that's definitely a big part
It's
of,
huge. It's
yeah,
huge.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would
I
also say that not one tonality is for the heart chakra for every person.
I knew it. I knew it. Okay.
There's a little bit more than our marketing kind of thing. Yeah.
But yeah, if you're doing the marketing, yeah, you're going to be like, no, you have to have this for this, and because they want to sell something. It's their
Yeah.
narrative.
Yeah. And as I look into it as a professional, and we're looking, music therapy is looking to become regulated in Alberta, right? And so that's got its pros and cons to it. And part of me it's like, don't tell me what to do, is like, okay. But as I look at it, there's things like, I'm not allowed to make claims like that, right? I'm not allowed to say this is prescriptive this way. And it's because it's just not really factual. I hate to say it like that, but it's kind of more for the marketing piece, to be really
Yeah,
honest with you, right?
that makes
And
perfect sense.
yeah, and even if that's not people's intention, like people can make music with a certain intention, right? Or like, I'm intending and I'm blessing this with a certain thing. It doesn't mean it's going to have that impact for every listener for a whole variety of reasons.
Because we're all so different. I mean, there's not one way that resonates with every single person. It just doesn't exist. Okay, here's a question for you. Kay says, "In what frequency do you tune your guitar?"
As I started to play it, I was like, oh, I don't think I even really do. I should have tuned it. I do use 440. Yeah, I do use 440. My Shruti box in 432, and I don't adhere. There's 444. There's many. And yes, we did talk a little bit about this, Kate. I don't adhere to the 432 principle across the board as the be all end all healing frequency. And the main reason for that is that it's a cycle per second, and a second is a man-made measurement. So I adhere to the belief that all tonalities are healing. And the other thing is, and I'm so my master's was in ethnomusicology, which is the study of music of the world. If you look at so many Eastern traditions, if you will, right? Not to blanket them all, but there's the use of so many other tones other than the 12 tones that we have in our scale. There's all these microtones and in between tones and tunings and that kind of thing, and tunings all over the map when we're looking at these other traditions, right? So there's really something, I believe, to this whole idea that a variety of tones can be of use. And yeah, yeah, there's definitely ways to use sound for harm. Definitely. There's definitely ways to use sound for torture, especially we talked about repetition. Like a part of my research, I did look at a paper that talked about, and it's going to sound comical, but I think it was referencing even like using like a Justin Bieber song or like something popular, and like doing sensory deprivation with people, like totally, and then blasting the music really, really loud over and over and over and over and over and over again for like hours, and how that was used in torture. So
God.
there are ways to, I mean, that's an extreme example, right? That's an
Right.
extreme example. But a less extreme example of how music can be harmful is, taking somebody into something that will bring up a trauma, like with the intention of healing, and doing it in a way that's like really, intense or too much too soon, reopening that trauma, and then not being able to help them come back from that trauma. Like, so that can happen sometimes, right? Like, the other thing that I have found with a lot of people is that crystal singing bowls, because of the nature of the frequency, and again, everyone is different, but a lot of us are quite sensitive to a very, it's almost like a pure sine wave. And again, if you don't know what that is, that's fine, but it's a fairly pure sound. And so it actually tends to have a sort of a stimulating effect for most people, which can feel like it can help to align things a little bit differently for us. But if played too much, like for half an hour or long, or even an hour, it can be just too much. It can be too much stimulus for our system. So that could be another example of the way that music and sound could be used for harm per se.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if someone wanted to work with you, they have a certain issue they want to work on, like the body image. How do you call it? Heal body image.
Yeah, body liberation.
Would that be a like a couple sessions they sign up, or you meet together in one session, you decide how you're going to move forward, and you use music in that session? And
yeah, you bet. Yeah, usually I do have I call it a body attunement process that I can take people through. I do an introductory complimentary session for people. It's kind of like a meet and greet kind of thing. Let's understand a little bit more what you're going through, which can be healing in and of itself, to lift it up a little bit more. And then just see if it will be a fit for us. And I've started, especially because of some of the ethical concerns that I've had around, some coaching contracts and coaching packages, and it's actually not really super in the client's best interest to lock people into anything long term. It's got to be a win-win for me. I usually go month to month, and I don't really lock people into anything. I do recommend that a minimum of 3 months work together is going to give people the best foundation. In all honesty, 3 months, it's taken your life, depending on how deeply ingrained it is, it's
right,
taken your life to develop these habits.
right.
And in all honesty, I still get healing work done. I just think that
Well,
healing
that's
therapy
part of life.
is, and I feel like it shouldn't be a luxury. I feel like it should be more, it is for some people, but it should be more inclusive in our healthcare and all that kind of thing. But that's a whole other soapbox. But
No, it's so true. But we've come a long way. You gotta admit, right? We've come a long way. Society is welcoming healing into our lives.
You're so right. Absolutely. And which is an awesome thing. And so, yeah. So people can feel free to.
It's not just food disorder or body image. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that people come to you with, right? That was just an example.
That's where I've been specializing lately, because I've been seeing it a whole lot more. And that's where I experienced my biggest trauma was around, obviously, with my eating disorders and around my body image. And so, and it can feel like such a insurmountable thing for some people. Because I have experience in it, like actual lived experience as well as therapeutic experience with it, I feel like I can really be of service to people that are struggling in that way, and maybe not having the results that they want. But obviously, I work with a whole range of people, from even people with head injury. I have some people right now that I'm working with that have some neurological things going on. Mood disorder, or not disorder, but like anxiety, depression tend to be fairly common these days. Confidence, self-esteem.
The usual that us as human beings have.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if people want to work with you, they would go to TiffanySparrow.com.
That's a great place that you can connect with me. I mean, I do have a link if they wanted to just jump in and book a free session right now. I could grab that link if they're interested.
What do you want me to type in?
I should actually know it. It's just to my calendar.
You can text it to me if you want, and I'll post it.
Okay. I can't type in here, can I?
Yeah, you can type in live or whatever this is, StreamYard.
Okay. Let me just.
Yeah, and you can type it in.
Can I? There we go. Good. Wonderful. So Kay is saying, where they had birds in a glass enclosure, they used 440 and the birds flew back and forth. When they used 444, they stopped flying and fell asleep. Cool. Yeah, like I said, there's different tuning systems that people go for, or reach to, or gravitate to in different ways. I haven't seen things that have been super conclusive in that sense, but I'm open to things being more than just anecdotal. I'm a big fan of the idea that, the more that we demonize an emotion, what we resist persists, right? And
Completely.
emotions are vibrations and frequencies, right? And so I really, I don't, I can't logically wrap my head around demonizing a frequency.
I
Especially because 440 is it's one note, right? And I guess you're tuning everything. And when we look at our tuning system, and I could go on and on. Our tuning system is tempered, anyways, right? Like it's not the pure octaves. We're not in just tuning anymore, right? So even as we go up, guitar is tuned so that the notes sound good together. I could go on around how if you get far enough on the up the octave, if you're just using the intervals of the pure just tuning system with the mathematics, eventually an A from one octave is not going to sound like an A up above, right? So it's like our tuning system's kind of messed with anyways. Yeah, that's just
So
my belief and my experience.
you tell them what does this link get them to?
This link gets them to they can book a free session with me. I'm
Free
calling it
session.
yep, a body bliss attunement is usually what I call it, but it's basically just a meet and greet to connect in and see if working together would be something that's of benefit.
Awesome. Like a 15-minute, let's get to know each other and see what's up.
Usually ends up being more like 45.
Oh, start talking and then, right.
Yeah, because there's a lot that I found, right? I know people's time is valuable, and it just doesn't seem to be um, of service to people to be like, okay, and next, and okay, next. It's like people need space to unpack things, right? And really get to the heart of what's going on for them. And we're not necessarily getting to the heart and healing everything, but it's people have stories to tell.
Don't we all? Yes, I hear you. And Kay says she resonates with what you were saying about the music, and she appreciates you sharing your journey.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate talking. As I said, I could talk. I tend to be more of an introverted person by nature, but when it comes to this kind of
It's your passion.
it's passionate.
I get it. That song is beautiful. I want to go download it. I can get it on iTunes. It should be on the radio like all the time. It's beautiful. And
yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I am a big believer in positive messaging in music too. Like that's the music that I want to create for sure.
how many albums have you done? How many songs have you?
So I've got 2 mantra albums. Sharanam. Sharanam means I can take refuge. I can let go. I can dissolve into the wisdom of sound or the mantra. And Sound Devotion, which are both recorded in India. They're both fusion albums with mantras. And then I have Journey On, which is more of an EP. It's sort of a shorter kind of thing, but it's part of what will be a double album when I release the second half of it. I was meant to release it through the spring and then it's gotten delayed, but the second half is called Good Place. And so that is to be coming this fall. And it's songs inspired by the people I've held space for or with, and just our journeys through loss as humans, right? Be it loss of ability, be it loss of health, be it loss of life, loss of someone, and just it's seven tracks, eight tracks in total, 7 songs, a reflection on our journey through loss and what we do with that and how we can cope with it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. If you guys had just tuned in, the song she was singing is "The Miracle," right?
Yes, you got it.
Yay!
That song is released. You can find it. It's out there. It's on Journey On the album, or it's in single format as well. And yeah.
Or your website.
Or the website or YouTube. You
have
can see Daphne in her eye. Daphne does a really cool thing. She's got a really cool, really beautiful eye with a really beautiful speck in it. And so she really highlights that as part of her miraculous essence.
Oh, all right. Daphne says you changed her life.
Oh, Daphne. I think we're friends for life.
I love the support you guys have for each other. Oh, thank you so much for coming on. This was really fun. I loved it.
Yeah, I so appreciate you reaching out, and just for Chris for making the connection, Chris Duchek, who you had on earlier this week, and just the opportunity to speak and share, what I know and what I feel. And we're always growing and learning. And I'm, like I said, I look forward to learning more as I go. And it really just is something that I love to share and help people with. on their holistic journey to wellness.
I love it. I love it. And you guys go to this website, Calendly. Is that how you say it?
Yep,
.com.
Calendly.com.
Calendly.com/Tiffany Sparrow/grow and get your free session and see if you guys are going to work together. I think it's awesome. I think I should do that with you.
Sure. Thank you so much for what you're doing here too, by the way. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah. You should definitely come back.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye, everyone. Bye.